A continuación, les quisiera presentar al maestro Yuba Oshie para su tema titulado Prácticas espirituales en las culturas originarias. El maestro Oshie es antropólogo cultural australiano y está especializado en filosofía, pedagogía y el estilo de vida de las culturas indígenas y pues con especialidad en Australia, de donde proviene. Adelante, maestro.
Hola, buenas tardes. Soy Druva O'Shea de Australia. Estoy en México por la primera vez para participar en programas culturas como este y también en la formación de una comunidad, ecocomunidad nueva, espiritual en Monterrey, she mentioned before. Okay, estoy alistándome. Y tengo un PowerPoint, pero no tengo clicker, entonces mi amigo va a hacer clicker por mí. Ok, bueno, ¿cuál es lo más peligro animal en Australia? ¿Qué piensan ustedes? Canguros, koalas son bonitos, like cute, pero salvajes también, crocodrilos grandes con dientes, arañas y también serpientes. Pero, ahora voy a hablar en inglés porque mi español es muy básico. I think the most dangerous animal in Australia is the human. Because the human not only destroys other species, he destroys his own also. Bueno. Now I'm going to speak a little bit about spiritual practices in native cultures and a little bit about eco-communities as well, I was asked. So, por favor, adelante. Yeah. Vamos. Okay. A little bit of my background. Who am I? So I was born in Australia, and this is my house. Most Australian houses are like the nice houses here in Monterrey, but I had this simple house made from mud and recycled materials. In the back we had an orchard growing fruits and also a vegetable garden. And I put some icons here. These are symbols to indicate some influences from my ancestors. My ancestors were lawyers in the military, in law. One became a Supreme Court judge. He was knighted by the Queen, Sir George Hunter Crawford. They study a lot, pioneers. They moved to a small island in the south of Australia. And, a sailboat, adventurous, pioneering, scholarly people. But my mother, when she was young, she became a hippie. And she left her family and moved to a community farm. And that's how I grew up in this situation. There's a big contrast. Actually, if you look at my life archetypically, she mentioned archetypes before, you can consider it similar to that of Tarzan of the jungle. Tarzan was born in an aristocratic family. He ended up growing up in the jungle. And then later he returned to civilization. So that's kind of my experience in life, and here I am today. Por favor, adelante, vamos. Okay. I think in universities to answer one question, it's sometimes good to ask another question. So today I'm considering, spirituality natural or cultural? That's the way I'm entering this topic. So yeah, vamos. Yeah. We'll try and finish in good time. Yeah, so to understand these words, nature and culture, it's good to see, to look where they came from. Where did this dichotomy come from, natural and cultural? I see that in the West it came from biblical ideas of God creating man from clay and breathing the breath of life into that clay. Also in Eastern traditions we see the principles of Purusha, which means cosmic consciousness or the cosmic ego, and Prakriti, which means all the forms that we see. Por favor, adelante. And more recently, we see very influential was Descartes and his idea of cogito ergo sum, I think, therefore I am. The story is he was sitting in his lounge room, in his sala, by the fire, thinking, and he was thinking so much that he realized that the thoughts and the thinker are two different things. So his idea is that because I'm thinking, I must exist. There must be an I. So this duality is there. Also, he he would operate on animals while they were still alive to learn about bodies, how they worked. Yeah. So he didn't think that, he thought humans had consciousness and ego, but he didn't think that animals did. So he was comfortable with that, which is pretty extreme. And his ideas influenced the Enlightenment period, the rational period, and subsequently the Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution, which is what we are experiencing now. We're all living in the results of the Industrial Revolution, and it has given us many troubles and many good things, yeah, technology, but also many troubles like inequalities amongst different people in parts of the world, inflation, supply chain issues, and pandemics, things like that. Okay, vamos. Yes, industrialization, and this advancement just continues. It seems like it has no end to it. We're always trying to progress, something new, build something new. And yeah, so as I was saying, it creates some problems. Por favor, más adelante. Okay, so let's contrast this Industrial Revolution with some ancient ways. Por favor, una más. Yeah. So I'm from Australia, and the indigenous people of Australia, they see themselves as part of nature, yeah, along with plants and landforms, watercourses, planets and universal bodies. And they see themselves as actually responsible caretakers or custodians, yeah, within nature. They don't see themselves separate from nature. They see themselves as part of nature. And for them, if they see someone, also the laws for how they should behave are codified within the land, within nature. And so if they see someone breaking these laws, they feel they suffer. If they break them themselves, or if they see other people breaking them, it causes them mental and physical pain or disturbance like that. Por favor. The Siberian Yukagirs, they have an interesting hunting technique where they become the animal that they are trying to catch. So this is a performance or a procedure that takes a few days. They have to purify themselves. They abstain from sex, and they don't allow themselves to get any smells which will give away that they are a human. And they dress as the animal they are trying to catch, and they spend some time building a relationship with that animal, courting with that animal before they can catch. Yeah? So this is a demonstration of how these people enter or see themselves within nature. They enter into nature in order to achieve their needs like that. Por favor. And on the other side of the globe, a little south of here, the Amazonian Arawate, they don't see themselves as human. They see themselves as transitional between plants and animals and the gods. And the idea is that you gradually progress through these species until human, and then the humans are eventually eaten by the gods or divine spirits. And as they're eaten by these spirits, they become these spirits. So it creates this cycle of from nature back to nature. And one way I think about it is something we can all experience is the experience of time. Time is consuming us all. Eventually these bodies will decay back to earth. So it's a very, very interesting idea. Por favor. Okay, this is an indigenous tradition from Bengal in India, which some have spoken a little of before. Also, I've been studying this tradition. I'm currently living in India and studying it further. This is 16th century. This is Bengali Gaudiya Vaishnavism, and it was this movement began in the 16th century. And their process for awakening their spiritual identity and their relationship with God and nature is through chanting and dancing. And they have a motto they live by is simple living and high thinking. They live in huts, and they sing songs together in communities like that. Por favor. This is one festival called Julan Yatra, the swing festival. And this is where they put forms of God in a swing, and people can come to the temples, and everyone has a turn to push the swing. They can push God in a swing. And while this festival is happening in India, all the homes, because Indian homes, they all have an altar with deities, forms of God in their houses. So they will bring their deities out of their house and on a swing, and you can walk by their houses and push God in the swing. Also, we can see this Brahmin, this priest, is offering a lamp of fire. So this process of arti that they perform is offering the elements back to the origin, the creator of the elements. They offer flour, which is earth, water, also this flame, fire, different items like this. And the idea is to offer back what was given. Yeah? Okay, por favor. Now this photo is actually in Bengal, in India. We saw before an artistic painting of this tradition when it commenced. So this is a recent picture, and you can see people from all over the world come to this spiritual city here to develop their spirituality, education, and dance and chant together. And this is where I'm living currently. I've been there for 9 months, and I'm studying there and doing further research. So anthropologists have been studying these ancient cultures, native cultures, and discovering that this line that the modern cosmopolitan Western people have put between nature and culture is actually quite blurry. You know, that actually, if you look at it closely, you can see that things are not so separate, they're more connected. And it's quite easy to understand, right? Because we say culture is from humans, but where are humans from? Where do we come from? We come from nature, right? So yeah, it's quite blurry. And now this blurriness has allowed for changes in law recently. In Ecuador, in 2008, they became the first government to give Pachamama, Mother Nature, legal rights, you know, as a person. And therefore, it is illegal to destroy the environment, at least in some areas which are protected. And they have teams of people who patrol these areas and make sure there are no people mining illegally and destroying their environment. And this is because now this nature culture, our generation is starting to realize, it's not just man is the dominator over nature. We are actually part of nature, and we need to work in harmony. Yeah? Por favor. Not all ancient traditions see it this way, though. That not all ancient traditions see that they are responsible for looking after this earth. Some parts of Hindu tradition, there's some tribes who live on the bank of the Ganges, which is a sacred river in India, the most sacred river. I don't know if you know, but this river is quite polluted by cities nearby. The water, people throw rubbish in, and also the wastewater from the cities. Now, because of their philosophy or the predictions in their scriptures, there is one prediction that this river will be destroyed in this age. And so they're thinking, well, there's nothing we can do. So they just leave it. Also, I think this idea is coming from when we overemphasize liberation, or being liberated from this world, you know, aiming for heaven, or moksha they call in their tradition, being liberated from our problems, then we can easily reject the value of what is around us. Yeah? But of course, not all practitioners of Hinduism think like this. Another common way of thinking is that our outer world is a representation of our inner world. And if we are practicing spirituality, we're improving our inner world, our consciousness, our hearts, then naturally we are going to improve our outer world. And this reminds me of one rule to live by. It comes from the the Boy Scouts. You know about the Boy Scouts in a North American culture, in Estados Unidense. Boy Scouts, the boys, they go camping, they learn tying knots and using knives and those types of things. So one rule they have is, always leave a campground better than when you arrived. It's something that our parents or grandparents might tell us. It's like a common sense thing that you work out as you mature. But maybe as a child, you're thinking, no, I don't want to clean. I just want to play. But it's a great rule to live by. And I think we can live our lives in this world in a similar way. Let me leave this world in a better state than when I arrived. Por favor. As I mentioned, raising consciousness, we can skip ahead. Yeah. And where I'm currently researching, there is a team of devotees who are cleaning up the sacred river and also the areas around this spiritual community there. And the team is headed by one valiant lady from Bolivia. Yeah. Viva Latin America! Yeah. Okay, por favor, más adelante. Okay. Some research, Govinda was speaking nicely about animals and consciousness, but I'll share just quickly some research also regarding that. Donald Griffin, he was researching animals and discovered that he has a theory that animals are conscious like humans, and they have reflexive thinking, means they consider their actions, and he thinks so because he observed their goal-oriented behavior, how they have goals and they try to achieve them. And this reminds me of the farm that I'm currently staying on. There's a rooster, and in the morning he walks around with his chicks. He's got 2 chickens and 4 chicks, and they walk around and they're searching for arañas, spiders on the ground. And I'm staying in a yurt, like the nomads of Mongolia. So in the morning, I leave my yurt. If I go too close to his family, he stands up straight and flaps his wings, kikiriki, kokoroko, and he says, it's like he's saying, don't mess with my family, don't mess with my family. And I'm looking at him and I'm thinking, well, that's the same as any father. Any father would protect his family. This rooster wants to protect his family just like I want to protect my family. Also, we see examples of apes, orangutans, who, like Kanzi is one famous one, who can communicate with humans with symbols, pressing buttons, pointing to pictures, and also with sign language. Kanzi can say, I'm sorry, I beat you this morning, I was angry, I was having a bad day. Por favor. There's one survey in United States, 2018, I think it was. Yeah, 2018. We can see here, más o menos, half and half oppose, half of those surveyed oppose the scientific research on animals. If we look at the separation, men and women, we can see that women oppose more, which I think is quite natural, that women tend to care more about other people, about other species. Yeah? And very interestingly, if you look at the bottom section here, we have separated in terms of high scientific education or low scientific education. And we can see that people with a high scientific education tend to care less about the animals, or maybe they care more about scientific research. They're willing to sacrifice. Animal sacrifice, right? Sacrificing animals for progress of science. We see those with a low scientific education, they are more opposed. More of them are opposed to researching on animals. You can see this squirrel on the right here. He's on a mountain, maybe watching the sunrise. He looks quite stoic or like a sage. He wants to live his life also, just like us. Por favor. So anthropologists have discovered through these studies that it's not how we thought it was, that there are discrete differences between species in terms of their level of consciousness and identity. Rather, it is a continuation. So we see plants. I've thought about this a lot, and this is my opinion. This is not a study now. plants are alive, they feel, but they're in a sleeping state, quite a sleeping state. They still feel, they still desire the sun, they're aiming for sunlight and drinking water, and they have these chemical transformations happening, but they're in a sleeping state. And then animals, a little more awake, a little more identity, and then somehow humans, some people say it's because we stand up straight, If you're horizontal, you can maybe try this sometime, at home, so you don't feel silly. Go horizontal on 4 legs, and you might feel more like surviving and fighting. I've experimented with these things. Because if you lay down, your body tends to want to fall asleep. You stand up and you're ready for activity. Also, it's something to do with the map of higher and lower. We have hell, the idea of hell down low, the middle worlds, earth, and then the spiritual, celestial realms high. Yeah, so some people consider that these have links like this. Okay, por favor, más adelante. Yes, and so I was asked to speak a little bit about some eco-communities that I've spent time in. So por favor, más adelante. We'll start with, this is where I'm staying in India, in West Bengal. Excuse me. And this is in 1979. This was some farmland, or agricultural land, which was purchased by one guru who wanted to start a temple and a spiritual community for his disciples from all around the world. He had been traveling, America, Australia, different places. And he is inviting them to this holy place, spiritual place, so that they can develop their spirituality. And originally they had this vision to grow their own food, make their own clothes, and live very simply. Okay? But sometimes other influences creep in. The guru who started this community, he left this world in 1977, so just 2 years before this. Okay, so next slide we'll skip to now. This is that same location now. Yeah. They currently, this temple will open next year. This temple in the center here. You can see it has very Western influence. There's been a lot of Western devotees of this community have been building this city. And what happened was it attracted so many local people to come and build shops on the main road. But also, people who are members of the community saw it as a lucrative opportunity to build apartment buildings. So there was a rule originally, no more than 3 stories, but I've seen them 8, 9 stories, some of them even, thank you very much, some of them even leaning, like falling over a little bit. So, yeah, looking at this sociologically, we can see sometimes you have an ideal, but it's hard to maintain. So there are still isolated groups within this community who have land and they are doing permaculture and growing their own food. But most of the food that is eaten here is grown by local people with chemicals and probably high content of chemicals. But people are trying. They're trying. It's difficult. It's difficult to get the ideal, to manifest the ideal. Por favor. This is a community in Australia. Now, in the 1980s. So this community was started in, I think, 1978. And they had a similar idea. They wanted to originally have no tractors, no machines, using the bullocks to plow the fields. And they're doing this chanting before I was explaining. And this is also these rituals in the temple of offering different items to the forms. They're wearing Indian dress. And this similar thing happened in this community. It was in the 1980s, it peaked, a lot of people came, it was happening, but then what tended to happen was, because it's a spiritual community, people want to focus on the spiritual activities, and not many people wanted to work in the garden. Yeah? They wanted to become priests. Most of them want to become priests and recite mantras and be a priest in a church. Not many wanted to work in the farm. So this community experienced a lull or a quietening. Many people left. but we'll go ahead now. But a rejuvenation happened by making an interesting adjustment. The leaders of this community opened it for volunteers. So it attracts a lot of backpackers, people who are traveling in Australia. They can come to this community and stay in, they've built accommodation for everyone, and it's very pleasant, it's a yoga community. It's called Krishna Village. You can learn yoga teacher training, and you can also get involved in syntropic farming. And there's a friend of mine that's actually started this project. And since this adjustment was made, now this community is flourishing in terms of eco-farming. Yeah. Por favor, más adelante. Before I came to Mexico, so just last month, I was in Brihuega, Spain, where there is a similar community, and they experienced a similar, the same thing happened. In the early days, in the 1980s, it was booming, but the same thing that I explained in the first one. Now they have, it's a very cold place also, very cold, and they're trying to grow food, but if you don't have the experience of farming in different situations, then it's very difficult. So someone came who has experience, and they have found a way to grow food even in the cold with these greenhouses, putting plastic rooms. And in this photo on the right, I noticed when I was there, it's difficult to see, but cabbages were growing on the ground outside of the room, but he had covered plastic sheets over them, and this kept them growing through the winter. So people are finding ways to make it work. Por favor, más adelante. And this is where I'm staying now. This is the community that we are building here. And we have a government. This is outside of Allende, Montemorelos. Yeah. And it's very nice, small team of people coming together. It's very exciting. People with different skills. One family, they purchased this property, and then other families have come to help with the commencement, with building in the early stages. And it's a very nice experience to engage your unique skills and see a project grow together. Of course, there's challenges. There's always challenges with different personalities. People want to do different things, have different visions. But it's very purifying in terms of you have a chance to become a better person if you can learn to cooperate with others on these nice projects. Okay, más adelante, por favor. And we have a vegan restaurant just nearby here. The address is there. It's also a cultural center, and there they do meditation, mantra meditation. They also study books from India and have very nice food. I heard it's very popular. There's a hostel there as well. I stayed there one night, and I've eaten there, and it's very nice. And that's pretty much it. Yeah, I have some conclusion here, but we can read through it. This nature-culture dichotomy is a thinking tool more than a fact. And this is my vision, that everything is ultimately spiritual. Everything is a type of spirituality. I also think that we're all one Australian indigenous elder. When I was doing research, I would interview different elders from the indigenous community in Australia, and I was asking him, how can a non-indigenous person, yo soy gringo, no? How can a non-indigenous person help indigenous persons? And he said to me, where were you born? I said, here. And he said, well, then you're indigenous Australian, because that's where you're born. So yeah, we're here now. We're all here now, so let's just work together, right? And on the spiritual level, we are definitely all indigenous to spirit, right? We all came from the same spiritual beginning, so we're all indigenous to that aspect of reality for sure. So yeah, my idea is that let's work together with our different natures, our different skills, and try to build a paradise here on Earth. Because, the Boy Scout rule, remember? Always leave a campground better than when you arrived. Yeah, so that's what I try to live by. Okay, so thank you very much. We have 10 minutes for any questions or comments or challenges, if anyone has anything that would like to contribute. Yeah.